In the Hakdama to Kabbalah Satorah, in Parshas Yisro, Perek Yutes, there are a number of questions that can be posed on the Psukim. The Torah tells us, B'chodesh HaShlishi, L'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim, Bayom hazeh bo Midbar Sinai. Klal Yisrael came to Midbar Sinai. They traveled from Refidim. They encamped in the Midbar Neged Ahar. And then the Torah tells us, in the following series of Psukim, a very fascinating thing. U'Moshe Ola Elokim, Moshe ascended, Vayikra Elav Hashem and Ahar Leimor, Kol Somar LeBeis Yaakov V'Saged L'Bnei Yisrael. Rashi, in a very famous comment, Rashi notes there are two groups that are being addressed here. One is the Beis Yaakov group. Moshe is told, Kol Somar, speak to them, using Lashon Amira, and speak to the Bnei Yisrael, V'Saged, which is also a verb, but a stronger verb than the term Amira. Rashi comments that Amira refers to Lashon Raka, refers to soft language, and namely, we're addressing women. The Saga of the Bnei Yisrael, says Rashi, Omshim v'digdukim, l'scharim, dvarim hakoshim kigidin, that one should speak to the males, and there one should speak in a stronger kind of language, telling them about the punishments, and all the precision that one has to be committed to in terms of Limud HaTorah. So there are two groups clearly that are being addressed, one softly, one in a stronger kind of language, perhaps. The Saga of the Yisro depends on the Machlokes of the Gemara, Yesh begid b'nei sentam, Ein begid b'nei sentam. But whatever the case is, there are two groups being addressed here, and Rashi learns one refers to the women, one refers to the men. Torah continues, Atem re'isem asher asisim l'Mitzrayim. You've seen what I did in Egypt. Hashem Yisbarach says, I carried you on the pinions of eagles. There's a very famous Talmud Yonasan Uziel over here who notes that night there was a kind of magic carpet operation. And Klal Yisrael were wafted aloft all the way to the Makam HaMikdash where they were making the Korban Pesach. I brought you to me. V'ata, the Torah says, Im Shama Tishmu B'koli, if you listen to my voice, Ushmatem Es Brisi, and are committed to my covenant. We are the Am Segula. This is the Makar for this notion, a treasured nation to Hashem Yisbarach. The way many Mefarshim translate Segula, we are Chaviv. We are, the Almighty is enamored of us. We are in an intimate relationship with Hashem Yisbarach. Ki li kol haaretz. Soloveitchik was always fond of saying that at Matan Torah, in effect, the Torah is universally applicable. Ki li kol haaretz, everywhere. A person has to be committed to the Limud HaTorah and the tenets of Torah. And the Torah ends, V'atem tiyu li mamlechas kohanim b'goy kodesh. You'll be for me a mamlechas kohanim b'goy kodesh, the way the Gaon writes, goy b'loshin gviya, our physiognomy is unique, eila advarim asher tedaber al b'nei Yisrael. Let's pose some of the questions. Question number one, we already alluded to, there are two groups. Rashi understands them as referring to men and women, but perhaps lav dafka. Question number two, Kol Somar, says Rashi, B'loshin hazeh u'keseder hazeh. Want us to follow this terminology and this order. What terminology and what order is Rashi referring to? Question number three, that since clearly Moshe Rabbeinu has a directive from Hashem to speak to Klal Yisrael, so a moment later in Pasuk Daled, the Torah says, Atem re'isem asher asisim Mitzrayim. You see what I've done? I carried you in the pinions of eagles. The Atem Shema Tishmu Bikoli, the language of Bikoli is somewhat difficult. The Torah should have said the Atem Shema Tishmu Likoli, not Bikoli. Bikoli, of course, is the use of the ablative case in Diktuk, and we have a similar kind of expression. Kol Amar B'Lasapet Bi Yitzias Mitzrayim Herizim Meshubach. Lashon Ha'amim Perzayim Chavitzum Matzah, that there's a mitzvah sasei L'Sapet B'Nisim V'Nifol Shenasu L'Avosenu B'Leil Chabishasar. But Bikoli is somewhat awkward, somewhat cumbersome, the expression. That's another question. Furthermore, another question beyond that, the Torah ends by saying, V'atem tiyuli. Why does it have to use the pronoun V'atem? Two psukim earlier it says, Atem re'isim asher asisim Mitzrayim. We're addressing the same people. Why the use of the pronoun again? And finally at the end, Eila advarim asher tedaber al b'nei Yisrael, says Rashi, Eila advarim lo pachas v'lo yosef, not less and not more. What does Rashi want? So I heard from my Rebbe, Hagoyin Radisam Alpes, an approach to answer these kashas. And then later on I found that B'Shur Leib Diskin, the Rav of Brisk, also has elements of what my Rebbe said as well. My Rebbe suggested a very important yisod that the Torah is trying to teach us here. Chanech lenar al pi darko. Every Jew has a share in Torah. Every Jew has a chelek. Every Jew has, shall we say, a connection to the Ribbon Shalom, to Liman Torah, to Har Sinai. However, every person has to approach it, given the backdrop, given where they're coming from, given the nature of their personality, given their character, etc. Chanech lenar al pi darko, the most important yisod in chinuch. Everyone has to receive the chinuch that's mat'im to them, that fits them, their persona, their personality. So the Torah, in effect, is addressing here two groups. The Torah begins by addressing the Beis Yaakov group, namely the group that doesn't have that extensive background, the group that perhaps are not FFBs, as they are wont to be called, but rather the group that perhaps may be somewhat distant. How do you approach them? You saw them the beauty of Shabbos, the beauty of the Torah, the beauty of the Chesed that Am Yisrael represents. Am Yisrael Rachmanim Baishonim Gomei Chasonim, the Gemara in Yevamos and the Rambam in many places. These character traits are the cornerstone, the very epicenter of Klal Yisrael. And you tell them, Atem Reisem, look what Hashem Yisbarach did for us in Mitzrayim. He carried us al Kanfin Yishorim, the way Chazal and Rashi describe a nesher that protects its brood, protects them in a very loving kind of way. And that's how Hashem Yisbarach addresses that group. Hashem Yisbarach wants to be Mekayim of all of Klal Yisrael. And therefore the Torah, as a bridge between this group and the group that follows, that we'll discuss in a moment, the Torah says, V'yatam Shemua Tishu Bikoli. Doesn't use the infinitive Lashon Likoli, but rather Bikoli, because in effect, everyone has to know, where am I? Am I part of the Beis Yaakov group? Am I part of the Bnei Yisrael group? Am I an FFB who has a stronger background, who can take on more, who can become more committed and go to higher levels? Or am I still part of the Beis Yaakov group? So the Torah says, tune yourself in like a musician. V'yatam Shemua Tishmu Bikoli. Often Chazonim, actually, when I was a youngster, I grew up in Chazonim. They had these different types of instruments that they used in order to know where they're holding in terms of their music and what have you. And that's how they would get into it. Im Shemua Tishmu Bikoli. Listen, hearken into my voice. Ushmadim es brisa v'yisem lisgula mikol amim. And now we understand why the Torah in the last pasuk says again v'yatem. Why another pronoun? Because now we're addressing a different group. How do we know that? Because how does the pasuk again? So apparently this group is the second group, namely the quote-unquote FFBs, or those that have a stronger background, those that are clearly more committed and can handle more. And that's why Hashem says to them, not simply but rather and you can rise to incredible heights, and you can become a Malachas Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. And now we understand why Rashi says at the very beginning, Kos Somar B'Loshen Hazeh U'Keseder Hazeh, using this terminology and using this language, because each particular group needs its particular language, its particular nomenclature. That's where the Torah ends. Eila Advarim Lo Pachas V'Lo Yosef, not less and not more. And notice the yisod that the Torah is telling us is the most important yisod in chinuch. Chanoch lenar al pi darko. Every single Jew has to receive chinuch that is in effect fitted to their personality, to their nature. Chas v'shalom, we should not write off any Jew. Every single Jew has to be connected to Yiddishkeit, to Hashem Yisbarach, to Liman HaTorah, but we have to know how to approach every single Jew. And therefore, one has to be extremely careful. The approach is really critical. This is what the Torah is telling us in the Akdama to Kabbalas HaTorah. Every Jew has a chelik in Torah. Every Jew is connected to Hashem Yisbarach. But in order to approach different Jews, we have to approach them individually, utilizing, recognizing their nature, their persona, their personality, recognizing the zeitgeist, recognizing the geographic locus they're found in, and we take that all into account. There will be Zoche, Chanoch Lenal Pidarko, and every Jew will be Zoche to be Mekabel the Torah, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, and bring us closer, Be'ez Hashem, to Mashiach Tzidkeinu, B'meir B'Yameinu.